You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholic, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, and press them guns. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And this evening we got some main course. We have an actual Saints game to get into. It is just preseason, but an actual Saints game and an actual Saints game win at that. So that's nice. I would hope by now people have figured out it doesn't matter if it's preseason, regular season, postseason. Like any Saints game, anything Saints related gets me pumped up. And if it's a win or lose situation, of course I want them to win. Whether people think that the win or the loss matters in preseason or not, I still want that W. I still want that W. So I'm happy that it went out, that it played out the way it did, and it was still an exciting game, even for a preseason game. But before we get into that, let's just get into some stuff that I was expecting to kind of happen the second I posted my previous podcast, which was based, the main topic for that podcast was Justin Simmons, and of course, I figured that right after I posted that it would come out that he either signs right away, which would have been awesome, which would have been amazing if that would have happened. But the latter of what I was thinking would happen is that, he would they would take him out to dinner or lunch. It's from my experience when Josina Anderson or someone in the Twitter media, X media, starts posting stuff like that and making it sound like it's almost a sure thing that they're going to sign, and then they're taking him out to dinner at like 10 o'clock at night. That sounded, which I've heard this before. I've heard this from like Jadeveon Clowney, Deshaun Watson, players like that have come in and visited with the Saints, and it honestly just sounds to me that they're wanting to get a free meal basically, and then you hear like it literally like left like right after that. So doesn't the Justin Simmons hype and excitement that we had about a week ago, that seems to about flamed out, and it could flame out into like the perfect conclusion of flaming out if he goes and signs with who he's visiting with now, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, man, they just can't have their own game plan or be their own team. They're always having to copy what the Saints do or try to sign players that the Saints are interested in. So yeah, I would say that's just kind of a Justin Simmons kind of fallout. He came to New Orleans, got a free meal, and he's out of here. There's other people around the league that maybe kind of think that he's kind of washed and he's asking for 2 years of guaranteed money or a multi-year deal. And I imagine the Saints weren't going to give him that. No other team would be willing to give him that. And if they were, they would have already given it to him. Same thing with whether the Falcons are going to sign him or not. They're not going to sign him for two years of guaranteed money. Like the best he would get probably is $8 million, like an $8 million guaranteed, like that. That's it, just straight up $8 million. But so that's all that excitement is flamed out within a week. Let's actually get to this game here. The New Orleans Saints 16-14 win over the Arizona Cardinals, which happened back on Saturday. Let's see. Stuff will pull up. Want to see what the exact date. So yeah, that was the 10th. That was August 10th, 2024. And let's just kind of start out with pretty much just kind of the glaring things that were kind of obvious in this. And first thing is just the first team offense just didn't look good. There's nothing looked good about it. And a lot of people would probably just want to completely place blame on the offensive line for that. But and then if they're placing blame on the offensive line for that, people are probably strictly wanting to blame Trevor Penning for that. But you can't just blame Trevor Penning for the entire offensive line being bad. Like, you can't blame that for just one player, because I mean, Derek Carr was 2 for 6 and for only 12 yards, and the only real good pass he completed a decent pass to, I think it was to Chris Olave. Yeah, he completed like a 10-yard pass to Chris Olave for a first down. Like, that's the only good thing I saw out of Derek Carr. And then the running game, there's just nothing positive. There was like one like 5-6 yard run from Alvin Kamara, and then the rest was just Derek Carr constantly having pressure in his face, him dirting uh, screenplay opportunities, and having a ball batted up in the air, and Alvin Kamara basically being tackled for a loss. So the first team offense looked terrible, and just, I guess that's shouldn't probably not a surprise to a lot of people who think that the offensive line is bad. But there's just really no positives to take away from the first team offense. Besides the 10-yard first down completion by Derek Carr. But after that, I thought it was a lot of positives. There's a lot of negatives with the first team, which when it comes down to it, it's really the only team that matters. But I thought the rest of the team, the entire first team, second, third, fourth team defense looked great. And then the two young quarterbacks, they looked good as well. But let's just talk about the defense here. I thought the defense starters looked good, and they were doing a good job of getting like a consistent pass rush, and that goes from every level of the depth. The first to even fourth stringers. And let's see, they got a bunch of sacks in this game. Khaleke Hudson had a half a sack. Carl Granderson had a half a sack. Brian Bresee had a sack. Nathan Shepard had a half a sack. And Nick Lalos had a sack. And Kevin and Jack Hefline had half a sack. So they were doing a good pressuring from every depth. The defense just looked like it was in midseason form already, with the way that they were not missing tackles and getting constant pressure on the quarterback. It was also good to see the secondary doesn't look like it really will miss much a beat without Alvin Kamara. I know there was no Cardinal starters and no Kyler Murray out there, but you got Kool-Aid McKinstry out there making open field tackles. He had 3 solo tackles and had a pass deflection on like third down. So I'm feeling real good about the secondary. I was already feeling real good about them, and it helps. It helps now that you kind of see that maybe your defensive line can maybe get a little pressure to go along with it. The only like glaring thing that I really noticed from the defense, which was kind of an issue from last year, and really is one of the few issues that this team seems to deal with when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, and that's the quarterback runs. They'll get quarterbacks like in second and long or third down, and they tend to lose containment. They're have too much outside containment or too much inside containment, leaving a zone for the running back to run through or roll out and take off. And yeah, you saw that a couple times in this game with mostly Desmond Ridder, but Clayton Tune was able to pick up some yards. They had Desmond Ridder had five carries for 39 yards, and one of them was for like 22 yards. That was like on a third down. That was like on a third and long, and he was able to take off for a 22-yard first down and get them close to the red zone. I think that we're into goal to goal there. They were inside the 5 after that play, and then even Clayton Tune had 2 carries for 9 yards with the long of 7. So it mostly came off of 1 yard where he picked up close enough yards to get a first down or put them in range for a fourth down, which I'm talking about how bad they do with quarterback containment and quarterback runs on second and long and third and long. Well, that was something that they did good. They stopped the Cardinals on four. I think the Cardinals tried to go for it for fourth down like 3 or 4 times, and the Saints were able to stop them like 3 times. So I was impressed with the Saints' fourth down defense in this game. So talking a little negative about their quarterback containment, let's talk a little positive about their fourth down defense. Looked really good in this game. So that was exciting. All right. So talking enough about the defense. Let's see. Let's see. Kind of talk about some offensive standouts here. Players that I was excited to see uh, show themselves. And that one of them was A.T. Perry, who seemed like he had a catch like in, up until the second half of the game, towards the end when there was like only like 20 seconds left, and the Saints were just up 3-0 going into the second half, and Jake Hayner made a nice play where he had some pressure on the outside of him, and he was able to step up and throw a 58-yard pass to A.T. Perry. And A.T. Perry, he ended up having 4 catches off of 4 targets for 85 yards, which is a 21.3 average. Just that main thing that just drives me nuts with players today is that they seem to like willingly go out of bounds too much. I thought there was still a little bit of room on the sidelines where A.T. Perry could have possibly scored a touchdown off that play, but I guess his momentum and him not wanting to get hit let him out of bounds, even though it looked like there was a couple steps there where he could have turned it upfield. And then we kind of talked about the running backs. There really weren't any impressive running backs. The most impressive run of the day was the 4-yard touchdown run by Spencer Rattler. Other than that, you got a bunch of 3-yard carries by Jordan Mims and James Robinson, Jamal Williamson. Well, I'd be like, the highest per carry average there is James Robinson with 3.9. I'd really like to get that number up into the 4.5 range, because that's looking very similar to what it was last year. You just barely had any running backs being able to average 4 yards of carry behind this offensive line. And then just kind of a undrafted free agent kind of standout. I guess there's two of these actually. Is Dalen Holker had 3 catches. It seemed like he had more catches than that in this game, but he had 3 catches off of 3 targets for only 24 yards with a long of 15 yards. It must have been because at least 2 of them were close to being first downs. But it was exciting to see a player that has a lot of, a little bit of hype behind him because he's coming out of Colorado State and the Saints are paying him like $250,000 as an undrafted free agent, but also because the Saints tight end room is not very deep. It's just Foster Monroe is your starter right now because don't really know how healthy Juwan Johnson is. So just with the thinness of the tight end room, I'd be kind of just after this performance alone, I'd be surprised if Dalen Holker doesn't make the team. And then we had Samson Nakua, who had like one of the, I guess you call it like a game-winning catch in this game. He had like a 13-yard catch, like on a back shoulder catch at the end of the game, which was also impressive. So if he could be even half as good as his brother, that I think that would go a long way with the Saints and their receiving core, which is, it's kind of just Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, and pretty much that's it. All right, so that's kind of your skills positions player. Let's talk about the quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks. So we talked about Derek Carr not looking too great. You can put that on him. You could put that on bad running game. You could put that on the offensive line. Just put it on Trevor Penning, because I know that's what everyone wants to do. But it wasn't just the Derek Carr getting bowled down by the Cardinals offensive line show. It was, we had some Jake Hayner in there too, and he put up impressive numbers just with his decision making and his yard per throw. reception, I guess, his average uh, yards per throw was 8.2 with 107 yards, and that's a 94.1 quarterback rating. And I mean that number is really skewed, obviously, from the 58-yard catch at the end of the game or at the end of the half by A.T. Perry. But what that showed, it may have all come in like one play for the most part. But that was a 2-minute drive. That was an into the half drive to go get points. So that was impressive. So the numbers there are a little bit better. He was 9 for 13 for 107 with an 8.2 average and a 94.1 rating. It's wild how their averages and just a couple completions can change your rating so much. Because then we're talking about Spencer Rattler, whose completion percentage wasn't as good. It's under 50%, with it being a little over 50%, like 52% at 9 of 17 completions, but only 70 yards. I think that's where he gets hurt a lot there, because he has a lot of dinking and dunking until the back shoulder pass to Nakua to basically win the game. But before that, it's just most of the passes weren't going over like 5 yards, 5 yards of receptions, because it was 4.1 average per throw and catch. And then he was sacked once. And here's the rating, numbers don't look like ridiculously different from Jake Haener, but his rating is a 63.4, which that just doesn't look good. But yeah, I liked both of them. I think Jake Haener shows a little more command of the huddle and command of like the pocket awareness and just his stance and his footwork. While Spencer Rattler, he looks a little happy feet in there and looks a little too quick to try to take off, but definitely has the stronger arm and can make every throw, which I think you'd have to question that a little bit with Jake Haener. But he's showing he can throw a deep ball. That ball traveled at least 50 yards through the air. So, and then with Jake Haener, but then Spencer Rattler, he had, just like Jake Haener, he had the end of the half, 2-minute drive to go win the game, which was super impressive. That was super impressive. They set him up for that, and he just went right down there and set him up for a short field goal. I think you could argue that he was helped out by a couple defensive penalties, a couple offsides helped the Saints pick up easy first down or put them just in range to be able to kick an easy field goal. But still, for his first start, even if it being preseason, I was impressed with Spencer Rattler. But I'm not thinking that you're going to be able to put Jake Haener on a practice squad or on waivers either without losing him. So I'm feeling, would like to maybe feel a little bit more confident about our true actual starter than Derek Carr. But just the quarterback room as a whole, I'm a fan of. All right, so that's defense, the quarterbacks, and offensive skills players. Let's see what else we got here. So we talked about there were some injury concerns that kind of came out of this game afterwards. So the practice after this game, I don't know if they actually practiced or not, but if they would have had an actual practice for that report, Spencer Rattler would have been on there with like a thigh contusion, so just a deep thigh bruise. And I think he came back like right after, but didn't have a great day of practice. And then let's see, Alvin Kamara, who didn't do much in the preseason game, only had 2 carries for three yards with a 1.5 yard average with the long of 5, just the 1 5-yard running. His back, I guess, started tightening up on Tuesday, and then of course A.T. Perry, who had been kind of getting the rough end of the deal, kind of the rude and insulting kind of version of Dennis Allen at the end of practice interviews and stuff, because Dennis Allen said that he just needed to see more from A.T. Perry. Like he likes him as a player, just need to see more. Like, well, obviously A.T. Perry went and showed that he plays a lot better. He performs a lot better with live bullets coming at him, because That's kind of A.T. Perry. Even in this game, he reminds me of kind of like a poor man's DK Metcalf, and he may not be showing a lot in training camp practice, but he showed a lot in this game against those second, third stringers of the Arizona Cardinals. It'd be really nice if A.T. Perry can really truly step up at the Saints as the Saints' third option at wide receiver. But yeah, I guess he left practice earlier with like an ankle injury. None of these injuries sound too serious, but still, that's something to monitor. With Alvin Kamara and A.T. Perry kind of going out for the next couple days. It seems like the majority of everyone else has come back, like Demario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore, Cringer Miller, Rashid Shaheed. All those guys have like come back to practice, or they're at least off to the side working. So just A.T. Perry dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury, and Alvin Kamara with some back tightness. That's not too bad. That's not too bad after the first couple weeks of training camp and preseason. So, so I think that's about all we got here. We've gone over the young quarterbacks. Told you about our recent injury concerns. Of course, the two couple players that perform the best are the ones that end up on the injury report in the next couple of days. But yeah, so the Saints, man, this was an exciting game. Not a lot of points scored, 16-14, but the Saints. This is kind of a classic Saints, or if you're a Pelicans fan, type of game where the team has like the lead for like the entire game, and then with like 2 minutes left, they give up the lead. It went from what did it went from 13 to 7 to 14, and looked like, oh, well, it looks like the Cardinals are win, but they gave our new young quarterback prospect Spencer Rattler too much time to go down and kick a game-winning field goal. But I also, you got to give credit to the people that kicked the field goals. Blake Grupe was 2 for 2 on his field goals earlier in the half. The one that was set up by A.T. Perry's big catch at the end of the half, and he was perfect on extra points. So, but just along with 33 yards. So, but I've been hearing stuff coming out of training camp that Blake Grupe and Charlie Smith had actually been kind of dealing with more issues with shorter field goals and actual extra points. So to see him be perfect on all three of those, his 2 kicks and his 1 extra point, is good to see, even though the long was only 33 yards. But you should be making those. There's no excuse really to not be making those. And then Charlie Smith, that takes some quahoves, yeah, for your first live NFL kick. You're kicking a game winner, and it's just a 37-yarder. But I definitely heard coming out of training camp that he'd been missing some extra points. So him making that, that takes some guts, to be able to pull something off like that. There's people out there saying with the performance group he had, and if Charlie Smith would have missed that kick, they'd have probably cut him the next day. But so that's kind of funny. And then I don't really perceive there being much of a punting um, competition, even though Matthew Hayball had some ridiculous. His average was ridiculous. He had 3 punts for 159 yards with the 53 average. Had a touchback, which was kind of bad, but had a long of 61 yards. So Hayball's got a leg, obviously. But I liked what Lou Hedley did as well, because he used to do like that the 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 rugby style kick where he'd kind of roll out of the pocket before he'd do his punt, and that led him to getting like tackled, like roughed on a play once, and because he was out of the pocket before doing the punt, he didn't get the benefit of the protection, the running into the kicker or roughing the kicker. But on all these punts that he had in this game, he was kicking them just normal, directly from the punter's pocket. He was kicking them, and they were all really good. So Lou Hedley looked really good in his second year as a 31-year-old rookie. He had 4 punts for 187 yards with a 46.8-yard average. 3 of the 4 were inside the 20 with a long of 49 yards. So I'm feeling a lot better, honestly, about punter after this game than anything. But yeah, so I'm feeling good about special teams. I don't think we got to see too much of what we'll be seeing from the kickoff, especially because there was not a healthy Rashid Shaheed, and I don't think teams are really going to want to show their hand too much of what they're doing on kickoffs. But I feel a little bit better about special teams now after they made some short kicks, but game winner, and then the punters look good. But I think that's about the gist of it. That's offense, defense, special teams. Uh, other what just said, like from the onset of this podcast, really the only negative I took away from this game was just the starting offense just didn't look good. But everywhere else looked good, and maybe the next preseason game against the 49ers, who I think beforehand the Saints may not have been expecting to play a lot of their starters in this game against the 49ers. But now, because the Saints were going to have a joint practice with the 49ers, but the 49ers have pulled out of that because of the amount of injuries and stuff that their team is sustained. So I'll be interested to see if the Saints play their starters maybe a little more than they expected in this game against the 49ers, because they're not going to be able to get as much work as they would have been able to get in with doing the joint practices. So maybe to get some of that work in that's going to get lost from not having that joint practice, you may actually see some of their starters in this game against the 49ers on I think that game is Saturday. Once again, I think it's the last game on Saturday. It's like the prime time game on Saturday. Yeah, so it's the last game on Sunday. It's like the prime time game on Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time, August 8th, Sunday. But yeah, so we may actually get to see a little bit more of the starters in this preseason game coming up against the 49ers, because they're not getting any work now because of the 49ers pulling out of joint practice, and that's disappointing. But hey, it might be a little more exciting if we get to see the starters in the preseason game against them. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?